Hello, good evening, good evening, good evening. Hi, everybody. This is Marcia Weeks, and you are watching the Election Express on the Marcia Week Show. And I am going to ask you to share. I know this is not the time that I'm usually on, but I'm hoping you will find me. I'm hoping you will find me. This that we're doing today, this show that we're doing today is so very important. As you know, we are in the midst of an election here in Barbados. The campaign started. It's a snap election, and there are over 119 candidates vying for 30 spots. So it's a really seriously contested election here in Barbados. And today we have a really significant show lineup for you. So let's talk about the breakdown of the show. The first part of the show is going to be an interview with Heather Cole, and Heather Cole is going to be talking to us about the manifesto, the BLP manifesto. Okay, so that is what is going to happen in this first hour. And then in the second hour, which starts at 7 o'clock, that will be APP's hour. All right. So we're going to start APP from 7 o'clock, until 8 o'clock. And then after that, listen, it's a big buffet lined up, at 8 o'clock. Then we have with us Mr. Phillip Springer, and he is the president of the Barbados Sovereignty Party and also the candidate for St. Thomas. And he has some amazing things to talk to you about, not just to the constituency of St. Thomas, but to Barbados on a whole. Very interesting and very enlightening fellow. I have to put it like that. And so he's going to be on with me at 8 p.m. And I'm going to ask you to share. Good night, everybody. I see a couple people you're on. I always ask you to share, and especially because people don't know that I'm on at this time. But I thought that this was so important as we have an election coming up. We need to be able to look at the different all the manifestos to see what are they offering us. Why should we vote for you? Right? And that is what the manifesto is saying to us. Well, tonight I have with me Miss Heather Cole. And Heather Cole has a background in economics and management. And while she was in Barbados, she worked as an economist for the Ministry of Industry and International Business and the director of the Industry Services Unit at the Barbados Barbados Community College. And she's held various positions in banking in the US, and she now works in the US as a senior budget analyst. Listen, Bajan's doing things all over the world. Hi, Alex. Hi, Alex. Alex Mitchell. Oh, my goodness. Great to see you there, Alex. This information is going to be good for your party, the Bajan Free Party. So please share. We're breaking down the BLP manifesto. Is it a waste of paper? Is it gimmicks? What's in it? So please share and let people know that we are on. Bajan Free Party still here. Correct. Well, let me just welcome Miss Heather Cole. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you for having me, Marcia. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great. I would see you on Facebook and in different settings. But it's good to, I was going to say I see you in person, but it's not even really in person.
Right. Almost.
And you are in New York at the moment. Are you still in New York?
Yes, I'm here right now.
Oh, wonderful. Is it cold?
It is extremely cold. I did not go outside today. Yesterday, I regretted going outside, honestly.
Well, I hate to tell you, but we were at the beach yesterday, yesterday.
Yeah.
But, you are a senior budget officer there in New York for a company. And I'm a senior budget analyst. And I'm so impressed with that. You know, Bajans are doing great things all over the world, you know. And
Mhm.
you know, we are proud of you, Heather, for what you're doing there in the US and your work there. We're so proud of you.
Thank you.
Well, you know, I'm sure you're catching the election fever there. Are you tuned in to what's
Of
happening in your country?
course, I would not miss it for anything. I was planning to be there on the island, but it did not work out, so I'm doing the best that I can.
Yes, wonderful, wonderful one. Hi, Mr. Hoyt. I was wondering where you were. Mr. Hoyt, welcome, welcome. And we're looking at the BLP manifesto. Mr. Hoyt has been with us every single evening. And this, you know, this is a show, as I said, this is not carnival. You know, in Heather, we are in this election carnival happening all over Barbados at this moment. But this is a sit down, you know, your pen and your paper, and or you're looking on the laptop and crunching the numbers. That's this kind of show tonight. Okay, that's what we
Wow.
do here. Yeah, so ask, share people and let people know we're on. This is not our regular time, so I'm going to depend on you to do your regular sharing. Okay, Alex and Wayne, Mr. Hoyt, everybody. Now, you know, let's jump right in. What's your overall impression of the BLP 2020 manifesto?
In my opinion, it does not divert much from the manifesto in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the same things have been mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
and not much has been done to improve of them.
Mm-hmm.
And regrettably, many things were just talked about as promises, but well, they must have been promises because they have not been fulfilled. So
Mm-hmm.
they have actually repeated what they had before.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. So it's almost like warm food that you warm up. Listen,
Exactly.
David is saying here that it's the heading, or heading is unsubstantiated. Well, let's wait and let's see. Well, at least it brought you here to see if it's so, right, David? Welcome, David, and we're going to go through it, and you can see whether is it you know, waste of paper, is it just, you know, gimmicks. And as Heather is saying that, good evening, Roderick. Heather is saying, according to Miss Cole, that she believes that it is something, a lot of it was there from before and have not been done. And basically it's like you warm up food that was left over, right?
Yep.
All right, let's look at the first item that you have some challenges with. It's a green investment bank. This is on the page 10 of the BLP manifesto, and I don't know how many of my viewers have had a chance to read through, but let's just read little portions of it here. And it says that we're looking for it, but it talks about a green investment bank, right? And as we look for it, so it's right here. And what are your thoughts about that? Barbados, you know, is this are we green for that right now? Are we right for that now right now?
Um, what I would say is that the idea of a green investment bank is good. However, it is restricting because it says it's an investment bank, not a development bank. And what Barbados needs is a development bank.
Mhm,
This green bank will allow for investments in things like hurricane safe roofs, rainwater harvesting, and small renewable energy projects.
mhm,
However, we need a development bank that will assist the island across the broad spectrum of activities that will be engaged in Barbados. For example, entrepreneurship, an investment bank, a development bank will help with that because a
okay,
development bank provides medium and long-term finance to businesses. And what is missing in Barbados is this part. there are a lot of small businesses or small entrepreneurs who would like to get into business, but they do not have access to finance to do so.
Mm-hmm.
What is currently provided is restrictive, and many persons cannot approach the banks or the credit unions for funding. They will be turned down. And the government initiative, legislation rather, that they have in Parliament now for the credit reporting bill, that will put persons at a further disadvantage to getting credit for business operations. So I'm saying, although a green investment bank may be good, the better option would be to have a development bank for Barbados again.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So there's a question here. Who is the investment bank geared to? If you know who is it geared to in your opinion?
It will not be geared towards persons who do not have money. And that is the bottom line. The people
Because
at
it's
the
not an
bottom,
investment bank. I see what you're saying.
exactly, they will be left out. They will not be able to make any investments in the project because they don't have money. So it won't offer them any assistance. So it is specifically for persons who already have money within the country already to invest in these projects.
Mm-hmm. I see. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Cole. What about housing? That's page 11 and 7. Anybody has, remember, guys, this is a discussion, and you know what, this is our community chat. This is our community chat. Please share the live. Share the live. Share the live, and let's discuss this. Listen, I got my paper and my pen, and we don't have any music playing tonight because this is serious business we're doing here tonight, okay? So housing, that's page 11 and 7. 11 and 17, that the BSP said that they're going to build 10,000 new homes.
I think that is not being, the projection is not being realistic, because I do not even believe that the government has built 100 houses for the past 3 years. And
Right.
persons will be making a lot of excuses for COVID, but COVID, it is not restricting the building of the assembly of the Chinese houses now in Barbados. So it should not have had any impact on the building of houses in Barbados. And while we are on that topic, we should also examine the government's proposal to grant persons under 35 $3,000 to assist them with their purchasing of land, or owning property rather. Yes, it's for the land. And again, it will not have an impact on many people, because first, the persons who work for the minimum wage will not be able to afford to purchase land. And again, they will have little help going to the banks and the credit unions to lend them funds. And so this, in my opinion, is a no-no. Yes, it can benefit some people, but it will certainly not benefit the lower class persons in Barbados.
Wow. So far, I mean, based on what you're saying is that a lot of this is geared to middle and the other classes, not working class people. And so
Correct.
you're saying giving them $3,000 because we bought property, and you can have $3,000 is it's nothing really. You still need a down payment. You still need so many different things. You need a job.
It will not go far. It won't go far at all.
At all, right? So it's not, and
Right.
10,000 homes. I mean, this is how are they planning? Listen, those you are watching. Did you know that they were planning to build 10,000 new homes? It's right there in the manifesto, right? Did you know that they're planning to build 10,000 new homes? And what are your thoughts about that? Are we supposed to believe that? That they're going to build 10,000 new homes? Wow, so that would mean that they're building, because they will be there another it's another 4 years?
5 years.
5 years. So they're going to build 2,000 homes per year?
year. Per year.
Wait a
It's
minute.
not realistic.
So what? And so no, I want to hear from my friend David Hall, who is saying that the heading is unsubstantiated. Is it a waste of paper, David, or what's happening here? So is somebody saying here that is this a Chinese investment? 10K houses, another Chinese investment? Because I mean, unless they're going to be making these little matches boxes,
Right. And even before we go there, the next problem that there is that persons will encounter is that the credit reporting bill that is currently in Parliament will have an effect on persons' ability to make purchases. For example, the credit reporting bill here in the US is restrictive. It is a failed measure of capitalism, and I see no reason why it should be implemented in Barbados. So persons who are not working, they won't have a credit score, and those who are currently working for the minimum wages cannot afford to pay their light and water bills and so on. If these things are included, it will put them at a severe disadvantage because their credit scores will be extremely low. And it is things like these that financial institutions look at in order to give a person a loan. So it puts them at a severe disadvantage, regardless of however you look at it. In my opinion, these Chinese houses are not, I would not invest in one of them. That's the truth. Because based on what I saw in the newspaper, they are not even comparable to the ones that local artisans built in Barbados. The better option for the houses that were damaged or destroyed during the passage of the hurricane would have been to allow local artisans to build these houses to get the quality and standards that Barbadians are accustomed to, and the aesthetic value is also important.
So Ms. Cole is saying, and I think some of us, I mean, it sounds ridiculous to me to believe that 2,000 homes will be built per year. Should we be, and don't you call it a gimmick? That sounds like a gimmick to me.
It has to be a gimmick.
Now, the next thing is on page 11, talks about the removal of VAT from sanitary napkins. I don't. Well, I wonder why that was singled out. Can you comment on that, Ms. Cole?
I think it's insulting that in 2020.
You're a woman. Why are you saying it is insulting?
To me, it is an insult. The government should be able to afford to give women something that has a greater value than removing VAT from sanitary napkins. We should look to be providing roles for women in development, women to start businesses, to be employed in cottage industries. For example, when we speak about teaching people to fish instead of giving them fishes, this is in this area. You are removing VAT from sanitary napkins, but people must have money to buy sanitary napkins.
Correct.
Why not provide assistance for women to start businesses, to start cottage industries where everyone can afford, where they can all afford to support themselves and their households? So to me, that is insulting.
Yes. I'm seeing, and as a woman, I'm thinking that as well, that's something a little more tangible than this, and why it's just very negligible. Conan, Mr. Roach would have loved to have been here earlier when you talk about the Green Investment Bank versus a development bank, and you're saying what we need is a development bank, and not a green investment bank. So, Mr. Roach, if you haven't checked that out yet, check number 10 of the BLP manifesto. Guys, I'm going to ask you to share. Welcome, Azari. Azari Walcott, my good friend, welcome. And we look forward to your comments, guys. We want to have a discussion about this and share. This is a place that we're thinking and we're working, and you have your calculator and you're thinking we're not having carnival over here. No, this is not the carnival election bus. All right. So let's talk about this. In there, is there any mention about the republic? Because any consultation on the republic.
That
The
is
Constitution.
significant to
I
note.
meant more the Constitution.
Right, that is significant to note because the government has stated that in this month of January, there would be consultations on the Republic, and lo and behold, the manifesto contains nothing with regards to consultations or the Republic or the Constitution. It is as though they never existed.
I want
And
you to repeat that because this here, guys, and this is why this gets me really, really annoyed, because this was promised. We were told that this was going to happen, and here is their manifesto, and it's not in the manifesto. Can you repeat that, Miss Cole?
all right, I said that lo and behold, there is absolutely nothing in the Barbados Labour Party's manifesto with regards to the Republic or the Constitution. And we were promised that there would have been discussions on these topics to formulate the new Constitution in the month of January. And we are now in January, and there is absolutely nothing. It is as though it has been an well, it's not even an afterthought because it's not there. So perhaps the Republic has been long forgotten. And I did write some notes. What is required, in my opinion, that we should be having discussions on for the Republic is with regards to, in terms of elections, for proportional representation. For example, if 20 parties contested the election based on the number of votes that persons from each of the parties will be allocated seats in Parliament. And also, the next point would be that there should be fixed terms for the House of Assembly. For example, 5 years, 4 years, whatever the case may be, and that the president should be elected. I am on that firm conviction that we should not have gone to the similar thing that we had in Barbados before, when we were under the colonial system, the parliamentary system, that we had a governor general who only takes orders from the prime minister and is basically a figurehead. That has to be a thing of the past. And also that senators must be elected, because we have people justifying the laws that are being put in place in the House of Assembly, and they're not representing the people. I think that, again, we have passed that stage. We need all elected officials to represent the people of Barbados. And now that we are on the topic of the Republic, I want to add that 30 persons, all 30 persons within the House of Assembly, voted for a republic, and none of them consulted their constituents before they did that. And they were elected to represent the people. Nobody took the time to go to ask the people, is this something that you want? How will this help you? And yet they went ahead and agreed to a republic.
And more importantly, you're saying that we're going down the same road again, because we were promised that there will be consultation on the Constitution of this republic, and it's not in the manifesto. And you guys can check it out.
Correct.
Right? You can go ahead and check it out and see if it's there. But as we're saying, it's not there. What about the diaspora? There's no reference in the manifesto for making provisions for the diaspora to vote. There's nothing, and you're in the diaspora, so that matters to you, right?
Yes. I would have loved to stay here and be able to vote, but there's absolutely nothing. And if I remember correctly, it was within the last manifesto. I may be wrong, but I'm thinking that it was there. But there's absolutely nothing that is in reference to people in the US or in Canada or England or wherever voting and exercising their constitutional rights, because a lot of them are still citizens of Barbados. And the only thing that I saw that was requested or would impact the people in the diaspora was the setting up of a philanthropy fund, and it was for the diaspora to contribute funding and the time and ideas and so on. So it's as though you are asked for an input, but you can't get anything out of it. It makes no sense. It is not a contract.
Wow. So you're not, no provision is made for you to vote, but there is a fund that is being set up for you to be able to give into your money, your time, your ideas, and that's page 12. The first paragraph, the upper right hand side. So those of you who are listening, will take the time and go through it. Now, as it relates to education, because time is going, I don't think we're going to be able to finish everything, but we'll start. And I hope that
I don't think so either. We probably won't finish it. However, the section on education speaks to the 11 plus. And what I want persons to note is that we have been talking about this for decades, and they're saying that it is in transition. So how could something be in transition for 3 years and they cannot tell us what has been achieved? That is my problem with that. There's absolutely nothing on what has been achieved within the transition in the document. So if someone there knows, please help us.
Right, because it's not, they're saying it's transitioning, but it's not, we haven't seen anything, unless, they didn't say, and it has been 3 years. Now they talk about transparency legislation on page 13 of the manifesto. Guys, if you haven't gone through it, it would be good to go through it. We're trying to do that for you here, and trying to bring it up on the screen, so just bear with us. But that was page 13, transparency legislation. But I don't understand it. The manifesto mentions this. And what are your thoughts about that?
The previous manifesto mentioned this as well, and absolutely nothing has been done. Government is not operating as a transparent entity. There is no accountability. And we have seen absolutely no results.
And so there's no
legislation. No.
Right, there's no legislation. Alex Mitchell is saying the talk is nothing more than a 3-year lie. Yeah, interesting, guys. Right. Wow. Now, okay, now the mini stadiums. I saw people commenting about this online, and it says that it's going to build 15 mini stadiums. The manifesto, page 14. What are your thoughts about that?
That is unrealistic, and it doesn't make sense actually.
Why
because
not?
There is a significant cost to building any stadium. I agree that there must be a national stadium for the athletes for preparations and so on. But to build 15 mini stadiums, there's an additional cost that will be incurred. And who is going to fund the bill? Are we going to get another loan from the IMF to fund this bill? What I thought would be more practical would be to upgrade the physical plants at schools that already have like mini stadiums rather. They have track and fields and other operations, that those can be upgraded and expanded to help not only the schools, but the persons living in the communities as well. And to me, that's the better option.
Right. What
is it will not there. Cost, right? It's already there. You just build it out.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, guys, on these points in the manifesto? Anybody, you're listening, and please share as we discuss tonight. And there's something here on cricket. The manifesto states that it will invest and facilitate the development of a cricket economy.
That is a crying shame. The manifesto, the last BLP manifesto, mentioned something similar and nothing has happened. There is so much that can be done within the cricket economy. We do not have a cricket village in Barbados. One can be built that year-round offers tours to visiting teams all on a year-round basis. That will be a supplement to tourism, bringing income, have sell cricket memorabilia and things like that. I think that we have, maybe the government needs better advisors on things like these, because without a vision, the people perish. Nothing has been happening in this area. Even if the government gives a subvention to the Barbados Cricket Association to help them develop this, that can work, but nothing has happened in this area. And we have cricketers who work for a limited time span on the national and in the international arena. We have men who are vibrant, still full of life, can still bowl and bat and things like that. And their cricket career is extremely short. We need to develop, we need to go into new countries to take cricket to new heights that we have not gone before. We are fostering ties with West Africa, and why not take cricket there? So there is a lot that can be done, but it is not being done at this stage.
Interesting, because you're saying this was in the manifesto and nothing has been done. I am particularly interested in page 15, where about the Codrington College. Right? There is, yes, go ahead. There's a mention. Explain that for me, please.
To me, this is really suspect. Sometimes you have to read in between the lines. It is not what something says, it is what it leaves out. So how could we be building a spiritual university at Codrington College? Codrington College was left from the will of Christopher Codrington in perpetuity for the persons who lived on his estate and their descendants. And I do not know that this fits into what was in that will. I did not have time to research it, but anything that has to do with Codrington must be specific for the Christian faith. I do not know if the intent is to have other religions being taught there, or what, or other emblems of spirituality. I do not know, but to me this is very suspect, and we should get more information on it, because I don't like the direction. I don't like the sound of it. It's too vague. It's too vague.
Anybody else who's listening, any thoughts that you might have on it? Because it is saying it's a spiritual university. That's interesting, because at the moment they do it is a university. They teach theology there. So what would be so different with it? If you're going to make it into a spiritual university. But I thought that that's what they taught theology there, right?
They do teach theology there, correct.
So interesting. So these are questions, guys, that, you know what, we're not going to be drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm drinking my water, but we're not going to drink the Kool-Aid, guys. We need to wake up and ask the questions. And that's why somebody said my heading was unsubstantiated. Is it still that way? David Hall, I think his name is. I want to hear from you, my brother. You've gone really quiet on me. Yeah. Yep. And I want to repeat what Alex is saying. They're going to do there. Yeah. Now, the QEH is on page 17. What are they saying about the QEH?
We have there's one public hospital in Barbados.
Mhm.
And for years now, it has not been meeting the requirements of the people who live in Barbados. And this is 2022.
Mhm.
Perhaps the manifesto should have spoken to revitalizing the QEH to make it a world-class hospital to
Mhm.
provide medical services not only to Barbados, but for the entire world. It can happen. And
Mhm.
things like proper meals and incidentals for persons who go to the hospital are required. In this day and age, nobody should be bringing their own toilet paper to the hospital. And I don't think that this is something that we can blame on COVID and say that the government doesn't have funds,
Mhm.
because it has been happening prior to COVID. And
Mhm.
the level of patient care needs to be re-examined. And it was only this week or last week, somebody was complaining about someone had died.
Mhm.
And to me, that happens way too often. When you go to the QEH, you sit and you wait in the, I don't know if it's called accident and emergency anymore, but
Mhm.
the wait is too long to get attention. So things like that need to be examined, to have a hospital that is revitalized and operational to serve the people of Barbados, not just to be there to serve the people.
Mhm. 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 And these are the things that you're saying were not mentioned in the manifesto, even though
Correct.
they spoke about QEH, but not
They
much.
did.
Yes.
They did.
Mhm. But the
So
revitalization of the QEH was not mentioned. I mean, people have to bring your toilet paper. I mean, listen, the nurses said that they have to buy bleach for the hospital.
right.
Sometimes they have to buy bleach. They have to buy, they have to go and buy a washcloth out of their own money. They have to buy their own masks. They don't get enough masks, so I don't. As this comment said, they should never even mention the word nurses or hospital. Don't go anywhere near there, wow. Yeah. And then the nurses, let's go down to the nurses, page 15 and 16. It
Okay.
says,
Right.
yeah, it speaks about creating a cadre of community nurses. But isn't that odd? They didn't mention anything about the nurses and not being paid, and the treatment of the nurses. Isn't that interesting?
It is. And I wonder what community nurses are. How are they different from the regular nurses? Yes, they may have specified things that they do, but at the end of the day, they are still nurses. So, how are you going to create this cadre of nurses to work in the community, and your overall nursing stock has problems that are to be dealt with, and nothing is being done. And this is something that really needs looking into. As you mentioned just now, the nurses do not have all of the things that they need to do their job. And how can a person go on the job and work without their tools? How? It doesn't make any sense. So the government needs to have that situation resolved, and not on their terms, but they must work with the nurses to get it resolved.
Yes. And as you mentioned nurses, I just want to say to everybody who's watching that the nurses under the union will be the Unity Workers Union will be protesting tomorrow at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. from Cheapside Market. They're going to be walking all the way up to the Freedom Park. And it's so funny that Freedom Park, so much money has been spent there, and the nurses, they can't be paid. I was even told by a relative of a doctor that from QH that the doctors too, they are not paid on time. Months will go before they are paid, and nothing of that is mentioned in the manifesto. Isn't that interesting?
Simply horrible.
um, and talk about the issuing of government bonds on page 17 for those who are taking notes. Page 17, government bonds. So what are your thoughts about that?
Um, Government has been the slowest payer when it comes to paying out what they owe. Persons, it probably goes back to 20 years or more that persons have been awarded payments and the payments are still outstanding. And to come now and say that you will award a payment in terms of bonds that will have partial, that will be issued on a partial basis, that they will get the funds partially in 4 years. It doesn't make sense. People have bills to pay. They may have want their money to invest in housing, support their children, and look after themselves in their golden years.
Mm-hmm.
What I think, if the prime minister loses the election, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she retires, how will she feel? This is what someone mentioned on the DLP platform. How would she feel if she gets her gratuity in bonds? She wouldn't like it. So nobody in Barbados should like this being meted out to them as well. It is simply not fair. And government is borrowing money to put into the consolidated fund where they owe people. And although I am not a proponent of borrowing money to put into the consolidated fund. What should happen is that that money should put to use to generate revenue.
Mm-hmm.
So this thing about bonds doesn't sit well with me at all, not at all. So for example, if you bring a case against the government, they can give you bonds and pay you 20 years from now.
Oh wow. Yeah, yeah. And yeah, that is, there's no, but why? I mean, all of these things they're proposing, are they going to build all these houses and they're going to do all of these different things, and you still have to be issuing bonds to pay people for services that they've provided?
It will not work. No, it can't work. No. So persons must not fall for this.
Wow. Now they talk a bit about free zones, right? Free zones where, in terms of, and I know in Jamaica they had free zones, and that did not work very good for our economy in Jamaica. But can you expound on that, please?
Free zones are a source of cheap labor. Companies come into the country and they set up in specific areas and manufacture specific things. And the persons who work for them work for little or no money. It
Mm-hmm.
would benefit the persons who come in and set up, or the persons in Barbados, the established businessmen who already have money. They can set up a company in the free zone and pay cheap labor. The government gives them tax incentives and allows them to bring in items duty free. And in the end, the money goes into their pockets. Persons, the ordinary man in the street who has a job with them, will not really benefit. To me, it is a waste of an effort, even to mention it here. The better option would be for the government to set up cottage industries where Barbadians can assist themselves to prosper. Not
Mm-hmm.
this, not free zones.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts about free zones? Wayne Hoyt, Jacqueline, Aline, welcome. Welcome, Jacqueline. Welcome, Mr. Roach. What are your thoughts? Azari Walcott, what are your thoughts about um, the free zones? I see Amanather here. Just looks like it says, just looks like a copy and paste from the last year's manifesto. Barbadians should already know that the government does not go by the book. For her, it's do as she want and just make up things as she goes. Okay, thank you for your comment. Anybody else? Lisa Niles is saying, we want to hear from you guys. We want to hear from, it's a discussion, most likely violating the spirit of Codrington's will, which is in that era would only have considered Christianity at that time. Very interesting comment there, Lisa. Wayne Hoyt is saying we build a freedom park and no place for the homeless. That's what I thought of because I went there this morning and the homeless they're hanging out. And all they're gonna do is, what is very shameful is actually Hero Spark. We went there a couple weeks ago, Hero Square. I'm sorry, and a prayer team went there, and there were, on the so much garbage was there, feces on the ground, and you look and the Parliament building is right there, and so they've no, and then what happened? Some of the homeless people have now moved over to Independence Square. I don't know if anybody's ever noticed that. They're all over Independence Square, and all that's going to happen is that they're going to move over to to this beautiful, which the park is very beautiful. But you wondered, couldn't they? Why don't we fix up the other things and take care of the homeless? So I do agree with you there, Mr. Hyde. Totally agree with you about that. You've not been here, Heather, to see the Freedom Park. Okay, so any more comments? Any more comments about the free zones, guys? Okay, Mr. Roach is saying just like what happened to Jamaica, and they can't recover no time soon. See, Life and Debt, right? Life and Debt is a documentary on Jamaica's economic situation. That's how I would put it. You talked about there is a section in the manifesto that the Freedom of Information Act.
Right. That is not mentioned, and neither is integrity legislation. So no, the Freedom of Information Act has not been addressed, and there's no integrity legislation. But the government did say that they failed to pass the integrity legislation. So there's no Freedom of Information Act, and they failed to pass the integrity legislation. So I do not know what they will be doing in the future.
And you're saying that wasn't mentioned in the manifesto,
right? Correct.
So no integrity legislation in the manifesto, guys. This is important. The third parties, we shouldn't say third parties anymore. The younger parties that are listening, this is something that you have to take note of. And may I say that the APP's manifesto is going to be launched tomorrow. I was told tomorrow evening at 6:30. So look out for that, and I'm sure they will tell you exactly where it will be launched. But the manifesto, APP's manifesto, will be launched tomorrow. I know that Solutions Barbados, theirs is on their website. Search for Solutions Barbados. I don't have the exact website. If you are listening and you have the website for Solutions Barbados, please put it in the comment section. But their manifesto is on their website to be seen. The DLP, they have launched their manifesto, which we have not gone through as yet. And APP's manifesto will be launched tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. 6:30 p.m. Jacqueline, Aline, I see you're saying no transparency because there's no plan to for any integrity legislation bill at all. It's not in the manifesto. What about agriculture? That's now page 21. Go ahead.
Agriculture, there is a lot that can be done in agriculture in Barbados, and I see it as one of the things that can actually transform the economy. And the government did mention food security the last time around. However, nothing was done. There were 5 cocoa plantations, and I formed a co-op with the intent of leasing one of the plantations to invest in food security. And I had applied to the tender, and we were one of the 3 people who were being considered for one of them. The last I heard of is that they were waiting on the water authority to install an artificial pond so that we could get water. But I doubt that that will happen. And so the government hasn't done anything with regards to food security. The sugar plantations, they're actually looking now at selling the sugar factories. And I would have preferred if the industry was restructured. People say that sugar is not competitive and things like that, but branding has a lot to do with it. And if we were able to brand the sugar from Barbados, yes, I agree that we will be able to still sell some on the world market. And to note, cotton, Sea Island cotton is a very expensive product on the international market, and it sells now for about $24 per pound. We need to invest in the cotton industry, and the garments that are made from cotton, a simple shirt, can cost as much as $200. So we need to set up an entire cotton industry in Barbados from start to finish. So from growing to ginning to weaving and to weave in our own fabric, and have the persons who work at the Barbados Community College who are in fashion design and so on to make garments to sell, to have a niche market created right here based on cotton. And the blue economy, there has been so much work, so much talk. Actually, all the minister does is talk about the blue economy, but we have not done one single thing in that area. We can create sea farms in Barbados to feed our people and export. So all they're doing is talking about things that are pie in the sky, like building islands off the coast of Barbados. We don't need them. The Barbadian people need to have food to eat and to be able to live.
Guys, did you know that they're planning to build islands? They're building sky building islands in the sea. That these people. Did you all? Do you all? Guys, you need to read that. Let me tell you where that is. It's page 22 to 23 in the manifesto. Right. This is where they're investing. They plan to build islands in the sea. All right. To talk about tourism. Tourism is on page 23. Take it away, Ms. Cole.
Okay. We have a valuable industry. I do not think that it should be the only large industry in Barbados. And tourism, it has done a lot for Barbadians, but it can do more. One thing that I must note is that we have an industry, and nobody can tell me the purpose that the tourism industry serves. Can you imagine that? Agriculture is to feed people. What is tourism to do? Nobody knows. And what tourism should be doing in Barbados is to solve the problem that we have of poverty. It must be poverty. The resolving of poverty must be attached to the tourism industry, so that we can see what is being done with the money that tourism makes for Barbados. Otherwise, we will continue to be wasting time, and the only people who will benefit are the persons who own the hotel industries. Yes, government makes money off taxation, but at the end of the day, it will not mean much for Barbadians. All it is like we have a glorious facade where the tourists come in and see, and when you pull apart the blind, you get the reality of what is happening in Barbados: unemployment, high taxation, every other thing that is bad, and tourism is not being used to improve the lives of the people in Barbados.
I mean,
but we also need to diversify the product.
Okay, can you expound on that?
We need to have things like ecotourism. We need to link tourism to agriculture. We need to look again at tourism. Everybody has the same sea and sand in the Caribbean, so we must make ours different. And we think of Barbados as a brand. So why not have a Barbados brand hotels that we don't have? And we need to
Can you explain that
utilize the
just a little bit more?
foods.
And what I love about you, Miss Cole, is that you're offering suggestions. So you're not just saying, "Well, this is not making any sense. This is, a waste of time." You are actually providing solutions and offering
Correct.
solutions. Guys, can you share this live? You know how important that is to me, that people are on and we're learning something. Because can you repeat what you just said, because you went through it so quickly? Yeah.
I said a lot, but basically, tourism is not serving the average man in Barbados. It
Mm-hmm.
is only serving the people who have hotels here, like the foreign multinational companies and the local persons in Barbados who owns hotels.
Mm-hmm.
Farmers don't really benefit if we import everything to be all of the foods and so on to be used in the tourist industry. So we must link tourism to agriculture. We must also use tourism to solve the problem of poverty in Barbados. And we have to diversify our offerings in tourism. Somebody had mentioned before, hiking, ecotourism. Think whatever we can think of that would make sense to us in Barbados, and we have to brand our product. If Barbados is a brand which people believe it is, we must brand the tourism product of Barbados.
Yes, 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 yes. I love that when you talk about the hotels. For sure. Mr. Roach is saying, correct, Miss Cole, that is also direct revenue. The problem is the people who own the industry benefit, and those are the foreign corporation. And yes, I love this. Lisa Nice is saying Barbados branded Sea Island cotton, Barbados branded herbal medicine industry, Barbados branded ecotourism, Barbados branded black belly sheep, and so many other opportunities. I love this, guys. This is, and they're saying you're on point, Heather. Wayne Hoyt is asking for talking about community-based tourism, which actually that is done in Jamaica a lot, actually. I was surprised when I went home, and that's a big thing in Jamaica, community-based tourism. Very, very good. And as I said, I love that Miss Cole is offering solutions as she goes ahead. Anything else on tourism you want to talk about?
Not right now. We are running out of time, so and I have still quite a
No,
lot
no,
to
keep
cover.
going, because our next we at this point we're supposed to have Miss AGARD coming in, and I'm waiting to hear from them. So let's
Okay.
just continue to discuss.
Okay. Another thing that I would like to mention is that the manifesto speaks about trade and the export of goods and developing 500 local companies.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't say what what product will be developed. And to me, that is an area where we fall short. Persons may have ideas, but
Mm-hmm.
they need government assistance or some sort of assistance to step in and help them develop their products to reach a state where it can be exported. That is where the help is needed. So talk about assisting export of goods. You have to start at the beginning. The government is at the end, and we must have a beginning before we reach the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that we should first start off with an idea bank at the national level to see what can work and what cannot work,
Mm-hmm.
and proceed from there, because then we will get a lot of ideas. We'll be able to thrash them out. We could develop cottage industries where one section of people work on one thing, another work on another, and so on. For example, we can do tropical fruit wines. We can make things from sargassum seaweed. We can make beverages from the aloe vera plant. So there is quite a lot that can be done. But we need ideas, we need a bank, we need ideas, and we need to conceptualize them and put them where they will be of more value to people. Because sometimes it doesn't, when you're creating an industry, it does not make sense for one person to do it. So many, for example, if you go to the Wine Valley in California, there are so many companies that make wine, and there's not just one entity, but so many. So it helps to brand the entire operation, to give it a name. So yes, persons will be able to associate a region with a type of product. So this is where we have fallen short. This is where the manifesto is lacking. This is what it does not speak to, and there is a lot of work to be done.
Because it seems like they're just throwing out words and just putting things there with no solid base and practical ways of how it's going to be done. You're just going to develop 500 local businesses. It's when has that ever happened in Barbados? And how are you going to do
it? They may have created them, but they will fail.
Because they have not taught us how to develop. Because even in the creative industry, we do need that. Understanding how to develop the product.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, as a filmmaker, those are areas that we fall down in. And so they won't last. The companies, they will. The business will develop, but they're not. I understand what you're saying. And they talk about ease of doing business. I mean, this will be very, very good. Because it's very difficult for people to do business in Barbados, in my estimation.
If we could follow on the previous topic just now about the products.
Yes.
Products for export. What is also required is that, for example, the government has certain entities that lend funds to persons. They do not handhold persons as they go, and this is also lacking. You cannot give money to people and expect them to continue on a path, right? You give them money, and yes, you teach them how to do their finances and do little things. But what is needed is like a 3-year hand-holding plan with a company to get them from one stage to the next, to get them to a stage that you say that, yes, you are ready to be on your own. But that is lacking in Barbados. All right. And to talk about the ease of doing business, the manifesto speaks about this. But the government has been unresponsive, especially in the pandemic. They had 2 years to make things right, and not much has happened. I remember recently persons were complaining about not getting their driver's licenses. Simple things like that should not be a burden for a person to receive, to get from one end to the next. And things like getting your certificates online, birth certificates, records from the archive, things like that. A new entity has been created, but I do not know what they are doing, and that's the truth. So this digitalization of information, it still has to take root, and people still need to see how it functions, because right now it's not working. Because for example, this may be off topic, but I wanted to look up some records some slave records in the archives, and there is no access. We had 2 years to get something like that going. And incidentally, that is another source of tourism, because there are quite a few persons who travel from the UK who come to Barbados to look up the records of their ancestors who lived in Barbados. And that is a source of revenue. And it can be another potential source of revenue for area for tourism. So things like that we need to work on. And if I can go on to transportation.
Yes, go right on. Yes.
In my opinion, we are not having a vision when it comes to transportation. We are still at this stage of buses to move people. The roads in Barbados are congested. Every 5 minutes, people are talking about the fleet of buses need upgrading. How much times are we going to come back there? It is time to go on to something greater. We need a commuter rail transport service that will take persons to work. It would save time, especially for persons who live in densely populated areas, to take them to work and back. It will reduce the traffic congestion. It will be seamless, and it will offer connections to a bus service, because then, yes, you can use a bus service. So we can have the rail going from one end to another end of the island, or a partway in between, wherever we need it to go.
Mm-hmm.
But it will reduce that congestion. Barbados is not big enough. There are too many cars on the road, and it is not getting any better. So we need to have a futuristic thought when it comes to transporting people. I know that some time ago there was talk of using the sea, transporting people from Oistins to town.
Right.
That can work as well, but nothing has happened. Nothing is happening. We're still on the same old, the bus fleet, and we need to get beyond that. And we have problems with the minibus men and so on. If we had a different type of transportation, I think that people's mentality would improve. That's the gospel truth.
Yes. And, as you said, these are ideas. Since I've been here about 22 years, and you would hear the ideas, but they stay at the stage of ideas, and, here we have a nice glossy document, and all of the governments, they've come and they've provided these nice glossy documents, and probably, do about an eighth of what they say that they're going to do. And this is where I come in with a plug for the younger parties. And I'm saying to people, take a look at the younger parties. Why not try something fresh and something new? Because we have not
exactly
what we put the X and expecting the manifesto, and it doesn't happen. It's almost like it's an ad. It's an ad. It's nice and glossy.
It is an ad.
These ads, and then when you go and to get the product, is not the same thing. And this is what seemed to be happening. And so they talk about a museum. Wow, they're going to be building a lot of things. There's a museum at Newton. This is on page 29. What are your thoughts about that?
I think it would be nice to have a museum, because the other one, the archives, is kind of old and outdated. However, there is no transportation. The first thing is, how are regular people going to get to Newton, to this cemetery? There's no transportation there. And why go and disturb the dead? Why not let the people rest in peace? I believe that the archives and the museum should be set up somewhere. If you're going to put it in the south, it should be somewhere closer to Oistin, which is already developed, and to give a boost to Oistins. And I'm sure the transportation is already there. So I am sure that a suitable location can be found in Oistins or around the surroundings to make this thing work, this museum. But no, it is as though they're going to take it to build it behind God's back. It don't make any sense.
Because then they would have to get access to it.
Correct.
And on page 27, they made mention of the justice system, but not for any major changes in the justice system. What's your thought on that?
It needs overhauling from bottom to top. Everything in it needs to be revisited, to be overhauled, to put something new in place. The criminal justice system in Barbados does not work. It doesn't work at all. And one area that I thought the manifesto did mention, but it did not spell out what was to happen. It mentioned an information management system. And this information management system seems to be geared only to the people who work within the system, but that is not what is required. If such a system is put in place, it needs to be transparent, and therefore it means that the ordinary person needs to be able to track. For example, if you go and you complain to the police, you should be able to log in like 5 days later and see your complaint there to see if it has been investigated. If you have a court case, you should be able to look and see when the date for your case, when your case will be heard, and then if any other things are required of you or whatever, what decisions and judgments have been made, and any other pertinent information. Quite frankly, we do not have a system that is transparent in Barbados. So things happen behind the scenes. That's all that I would say. Too much happens behind the scenes. People's cases get pushed underneath the carpet. Some drop through, some are pushed. People do all kinds of things, even the police. And that is why sometimes we end up with situations wondering, oh, this person get off and so on. But it is a system that needs to be changed, and people need to see that it is transparent. And in addition to this, what is required in Barbados is a land court, as well as a title holding company that is attached to that court.
Before you go on, Alex, are you still there? Did you hear what Miss Cole said? Alex Waith, Alex Waith, God bless his soul, he's not with us anymore. But Alex Mitchell, did you hear what Miss Cole said? And someone is saying here the ideas and alternate solutions are plenty, and I love them. And people are really enjoying what I love about what you're doing. People could sit and they criticize, and I don't like this, I don't like that, but you're offering solutions and ideas, and that's great. And guys who are watching, offer some ideas as well. Any solutions you have, put it there. It's going to be in the chat, and we're going to go through the chat. We're going to mine this chat. All right. So make sure you put your ideas there. So go ahead and talk about this land court, which I think is so important in Barbados. Go ahead, Heather.
We have had too many instances of persons losing their land in Barbados. Some of them are well known and some of them are not. But we need to get past that. There's just this need. It is holding us back. I remember the Stewart's case. Everybody heard about that one. But there are a lot more. There was this man named Jerry Nurse as well. And some people do not come forward. Some lawyers prefer not for people to air their grievances in public. But there is a problem in Barbados, and it is time that we resolve it. So this land court will be for those cases specifically. And there's even, yes, there's a case that mentions Violet Beckles, but there is even an older one that concerns the persons who went to Panama and used their funds to purchase plantations in Barbados. And that case is still outstanding. And if you recall, recently, one of them was heard in Florida, the one about Kingston Estates, and that has still not received a judgment in Barbados. In this day and age, we need to get this stopped. And this is one thing that this court can do. And going forward, we need a title holding company that persons will be able to track and see who owned the title before, who owns it now, who owns it 40 years ago, and it is not left to the registry, because too many irregular things happen in that registry and happen concerning lawyers in Barbados. So we need to get past that. We need to be transparent.
It says here on page 26 of the manifesto that state-owned, that the manifesto says that it intends to improve the governance of the state-owned enterprises, which is a good thing. Don't you think that's a good thing?
The intentions is good, yes, to improve governance. That would be great. But the major, my major problem with that is a government can say that, but yet it appoints, yet it puts political employees in place to manage those state-owned enterprises. And sometimes those persons do not know what they are doing. And so it is difficult to put, not difficult, if you put someone in a position and they do not know what to do, and you ask them to manage, how do you expect to make revenue or maximize revenue from the entity when you do not have the correct person in charge? It will never work. So we need to get past that. We need to be serious and get past that and look at earning revenue, not bleeding revenue. And we don't want 301 people that the government feel that they must give a job to after they win elections being put in these statutory corporations just to say that they have a job, and technically they're not doing much. It bleeds revenue. So things like that, we need to re-examine.
Wayne Hoyt is asking a question of Ms. Cole. Ms. Cole, do you think the registration department at the electoral department should be merged, and the registration department, the electoral department should be merged? That's a good question. What are your thoughts on that, Ms. Cole?
Definitely, because basically both of them feed into each other. So I don't know why they are apart, because you need to register to vote, right? So the two of them should be one department. So again, that could be one way that revenue is bleeding. We don't need a duplication of the effort. They can all come together.
And Jacqueline Boyce Alan was saying independent bodies needed to investigate the police. So important. Oh my goodness, so many things.
I do agree with her, but more than that, we have a problem concerning, as I said, our entire judicial system needs to be overhauled. But this thing about a police force, what I would do is that I would not only have police from Barbados, I would have police from Jamaica, Trinidad, wherever else in the Caribbean to supplement the Barbados police force, so that there is this inbreeding thing that we need to get rid of. So we need fresh input, not the same old. You can discipline someone and then put them back in the same job and expect different results. It's not going to happen in the police force in Barbados. So we need new input. Same thing goes for the persons who work in the customs officers. We need that there as well, because we cannot drugs coming to the island. Nobody know how they come,
Mm-hmm.
but yet they come here. So
Mm-hmm.
we need to have new input, new faces, and be continuously rotating staff to prevent these things from happening.
Mm. Excellent, excellent. Miss Cole, I could see that you love Barbados.
I do.
You live
I
outside of
do.
Barbados, and you are now you're now working in New York. But I could see that the deep love that you have for your country.
I'm
And
passionate about it.
yes,
Passionate.
very passionate. Yes, wow. This is Mr. Roach is saying lies, lies, lies. They shall sell the balance of the state-owned entities. Miss Cole, one thing we must understand: the ministers don't run the ministries. The PS do, and they are the ones that we send MPs to do the battle against. But the MPs become ministers and betray the people. And so he's saying this is his observation. What are your thoughts?
Um, Regardless, though, what I would do in that instance is to rotate my PSs often,
Mhm.
because when they get to take root, that is when everything goes wrong. So we need to rotate them as well. And it is one thing to say that PSs are responsible, but everything in Barbados has become political. And that's the only point that I would wish to make in this instance. Everything. So you can't just blame the PSs. The civil servants have also become afraid
Mhm.
of the politicians, and that should never happen.
Mhm.
Um, Recently, there was this case with the policemen, and that were awarded funds when they lost the case. And I think it's a solicitor general. I don't remember her title, but the person went to the Caribbean Court of Justice to
Yes.
let them know what they were doing. That's ridiculous. That should never happen. That was a political decision that interfered with what the outcome of a judicial process. It should never have occurred.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I tell you, and there's no integrity legislation. There's nothing there to
Correct,
no checks
correct.
and balances,
There's no
and
checks and
all
balances.
of these pages of this manifesto, and there is nothing in there about the integrity legislation. Nothing of that sort. To
Correct.
accountability. They're talking about transparency, but the structure that needs to be put in place to ensure that that happens, it's not there. So it's just something they put on paper.
It is just on paper.
Wow.
It is just a marketing blitz. This is what these manifestos are. You must hold, well, we don't want to get a 30-0 again. And I hope that it would be good if all of the parties contesting were able to get seats, that the process can be fair and persons' feet can be held to fire, so that they will do what they told the people they will do.
Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. Those of you who are just joining, this is Heather Cole, and Heather Cole is a senior budget analyst in New York. She's Barbadian, and she has a background in economics and management. Those of you who are just coming on, and she has worked as an economist for the Ministry of Industry and International Business here in Barbados, and is now living overseas. And we're happy that she is she is on, and she's going through the manifesto, and not just it's a review, really a review of the manifesto, and making suggestions. And Steve Morrison, a manifesto is a comfort to a fool. I agree, because what it is, it's a marketing, it's a piece, it's marketing.
It is marketing, yes.
It is like they tell you, you know what, you could come to my you see all these ads about McDonald's, and Burger King, and the
Yes.
thing looks so pretty and draws you in.
That's it. That's it. That's all it is.
Oh my goodness, my goodness. All right, so let's talk about marijuana, page 10, and I think that's the last thing that we have tonight. But I'm enjoying this. We'll talk about
Okay.
marijuana. This is on page 10 of the manifesto. This is a big area right now.
Okay. Well, in 2018, the government said that they were going to have a referendum on marijuana. And as you are aware, they did no such thing. It was a huge disappointment. And so not having the marijuana referendum, what they did was to slap a tax. That's all I could call define a tax on persons who were caught with, I think it is 50 grams or 30 grams. I do not remember how many grams.
Mhm.
If they were caught with that amount, they were fined. However, if they could not pay the fine, nothing changed. These persons still end up before the court and going to jail.
Mhm.
And to me, the government was being disingenuous. They knew what they were about, but they lied to the people.
Mhm.
And any thought of creating a new industry from marijuana should not leave out the persons who are currently incarcerated
Mhm.
or the boys on the block. These are the
Mhm.
persons who should benefit primarily from that industry and then everybody else afterwards.
Mhm.
Um, what has happened, the way how I'm able to explain it is if we go back to slavery, remember the slaves were outside of the system.
Yes.
This is the same way that we are treating the boys on the block when it comes to marijuana. They are outside the system, like not even second class, like third class citizens.
Mhm.
Citizens. They are, if the police go and raid, they collect them like oh, and some of them possibly, if it is a Friday, they spend the weekend in jail. And on Monday they go before the magistrate the same way that they
Mhm.
were dressed when they were going liming. It is
Mhm.
quite inhumane. And in
Mhm.
this day and age, our children should not be treated that way.
Mhm.
And so, what government wants to create is a medical marijuana industry. For the past 2 years, they have been trying to no avail, but it will not work because there are stringent protocols that must be adhered to in order for them to create byproducts, for example, like the oils and other medicinal things that are sold in the US and in Europe, and they will never be able to get it done. It will be a huge investment. Then they will have to bring in people from overseas to start it and things like that. So it is not going to work. The best thing for the government to do is to allow is first to decriminalize marijuana and legalize it so that and give every person the opportunity who wishes to grow it the opportunity to grow it. And what can be done is that they can set up a clearinghouse or a clearing facility and have like a minimum that a person can grow. For example, 5 plants. If you grow 5 plants, you'll be eligible to sell your buds to the clearing facility, and then government can export them to Europe or wherever. But right now, the way how the government has the industry structured, number one, the costs are prohibitive for the ordinary person to get into the industry. And when they get into the industry, they have to then have land. And
Mhm.
where is the land? No land is available. As I
Mhm.
had mentioned before, the Clico estates, they have not, it's 2 years have gone and they have still not made a decision as to who is to get this land.
Mhm.
And so land is also required. And recently, they were, I was told by a sugar farmer that the government will no longer be leasing their land to grow sugar. So
Mhm.
perhaps there will be a, this is something that can work with. Perhaps they can use some of the land, to grow medical marijuana as well, or to divide it and to offer some to persons to plant. But I see the marijuana industry as a new one for Barbados that can help it to prosper. St. Vincent is growing and selling. They're not becoming involved in any medical marijuana, setting up anything on the island. So that can work for Barbados as well. What I think the government must do, or whoever gets into power, I hope they do, is to offer, is to free the persons who are offer leniency to the persons who are currently in jail. Because it does not make sense for the government to offer the industry to men who come in dark suits and white shirts. And we have people in Barbados who can do the same thing, but they are left to rot in jail. It doesn't make any sense. And that is something that we must stand up against. And also,
let me just interject there that I happen as somebody who, a lot of people who are in the church and they hear me talk about this, they're wondering, what is she saying? But I really think that this is something that the church needs to join, hands with these young men and call for justice, because I think this is one of the most unjust things that has occurred in the Caribbean against our youth. How could we allow people to come in to benefit from marijuana financially, and we have people locked up in jail, and people who have lost their families, and people, children with their fathers in jail, and then people are walking out of here with the attaché case of money, just not literally, but you know what I mean. They're benefiting financially off the back of these young men. I think this is a call for everybody. Everybody needs a call for justice, as it relates to marijuana. To me, it is one of those scourges that is over the Caribbean, and it's not just Barbados. They're trying to rectify that in Jamaica, where they're making the licenses, more affordable for the local people, but we haven't heard of anything like that for Barbados.
Right, nothing at all. So clemency must be offered to those people in jail. And you know what would have been the perfect opportunity to do this? Was when we had the Republic announcement. That would have been marvelous, not awarding a national hero, which doesn't make any sense. But what I also wanted to mention was that the older persons, they is the way how they have been brought up to think that marijuana bad.
Yes.
So they must be deprogrammed to see that what they were taught is not true. And that is a huge problem that we have in Barbados. People think that the youth so bad when it comes to marijuana, but that is not so. It is as though we were sold a facade, and it has helped us back.
Yes.
There was something else I wanted to mention. Oh, the Rastas and marijuana.
Oh Lord, don't you're pulling on my heartstrings right there. This is no, go ahead.
All right, for something that people use, and we know they use it, ain't that they hide and use it, and we know they use it. It is well known that it is part of their religion.
Yes.
Why create a law to obstruct them from using it? That is the only purpose that law serves. And I hope that the government does change, and that is removed from the statute books, as well as marijuana is legalized and decriminalized. That is what I'm hoping for a new Barbados.
Yes. No, I mean, in the last manifesto, they had, they said they would have held a referendum on marijuana. But as we realize that the BLP government. It's that they're averse to any kind of referendum, but they never had that. In this new manifesto, is there a referendum in the promised in the manifesto?
No, and that is a good point that you have made. So we do not have anything, we the people do not have anything to resort to. I think that it is in the Constitution of probably Antigua and some other places, but we don't have it in Barbados. The people do not have a voice in the Constitution. Basically, that's it.
That's it. So so even with this, it was promised last manifesto. It didn't happen, and it's not here again. So here we are. We're at the
Right.
same place because
They
this
do not intend to do
BLP,
anything.
the BLP, they are averse to referendums. I will have to say that because every time they promise it and it's never done. It's never done. So,
Right.
Mr. Roach has a very good comment here that I want to read. It's very big. It's going to take up most of the screen. It says cannabis legalized or legislate in a manner that includes everyone if they choose to get involved, starting from the farmers. Sorry, someone is calling. Starting from the farmers cultivating, employ people to reap, people to strip, and machines to weave, twin cotton, wool cloth, school uniforms, work uniforms, building material, rope, bags of all kinds. So much direct revenue. What are your thoughts about that, Ms. Cole?
Everything can happen except medical marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in agreement, everything. And what I also want to add is that it is hypocritical that the government has taken, or successive governments rather, no, this government, because they said that they would have the referendum. So it is hypocritical that they have taken this stance not to have the referendum and to tax persons and still have them thrown in jail and so on. And the reason why I say that it is hypocritical is that currently there is a marijuana industry in Barbados. We may not think so, but there is, because where else in the world would you legally import wrappers? We do not manufacture cigarettes in Barbados, but we import wrappers. That's the only thing that they are used for. And government benefits from the VAT of those wrappers. So there is already an industry. We fool ourselves if we think that there is not an industry, and we think that government does not benefit, because it does. And then we have this whole other part of the industry that props up the 1,000,001 lawyers that there are in Barbados. So some person does not want that to stop.
So you're saying there is an industry?
There is, yes. And then there's the underground one with the people who currently bring it in, who government never find out who they are, but they're the people who walked around, who go around in their car, the tinted cars, and whatever. They are there. There is already an industry, but they just don't want to disrupt that. That's all. So the people, the boys on the block, are the ones who must suffer, and we need to stop that.
Yes, yes. I love how you say that there's already an industry here, and it is so true. I see it around all the time, and people, a lot of people, that's how they're making their livelihood, and so it's already here, already happening.
Yep.
And that I think that was a very interesting and fresh comment. That is there anything else that you want to add? I mean, we oh my goodness, guys. I mean, and anybody else have read the manifesto? I said manifesto. Anybody else? Any other comments that we have? Any other comments, guys? This is tremendous. Very, very important that we have this show. You need to be sharing it. You need to be sending it out to people, especially before they go to vote, and let them realize that, hey, this is what it is. It's a nice, pretty ad.
Right.
It's a pretty ad that is created, right?
It contains nothing for the average man.
Yes,
Basically, that's it.
yes. Wow, nothing for the average man. That's the thing. So, business people, they would probably like this manifesto, you think? Business people would like it?
They already benefit so much. They don't even have to have anything new. Remember, the government they wrote off the VAT from the businesses.
Yes.
So they got quite a slice from the government already. They can invest in the investment bank if it ever comes off. To me, it doesn't even offer those people much as well. This is just a marketing tool.
Mm-hmm.
Basically,
Mm-hmm.
that's it.
Yes, just some marketing tool. Guys, before you put that X, think about what you're doing. Read. Do not be fooled by all the blitz and the glamour and all the things that's happening. Don't be fooled. I say read, 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 read. And if you're not into reading, you can put on the show and watch it again.
Exactly.
That's
Yes.
a lot of education. Miss Cole, we want to thank you so much for coming on tonight. This has been such education, really, for me and for our viewers. And do you have any final words before you go?
What I would like all Barbadians to do is to consider carefully where they put their X and not vote for a repeat of what has happened over the past 3 years. It has not been to your benefit. And to think carefully, make all careful considerations of what will be beneficial to you and your family before you make that X. There is no turning back after you put that X.
Yes, very wise words. Very wise words. Thank you so much, Miss Cole, for coming on. And I would love to have you back on at some point, because I think we need to repeat some of these areas. We need to sit down and probably look at all the manifestos. I think that would be
You
a
must, yes.
interesting one to sit down and to go through all the manifestos. I think that's a good one to do.
Yes.
Yes?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Miss Cole, for coming on, and God bless you.
God bless you as well. Have a good evening, everyone. Take care.
Yes. Bye bye. Well, guys, that was like we were in school, wasn't it? Somebody else is saying, Mr. Roach is saying, thank you, Miss Cole. That was like we were in school, guys, and we're not finished yet. We're not finished yet. We've got some more things coming up for you. But before we do that, we were waiting on Dr. Maria Agard, who is at a spot meeting to come in and to talk to us, and she was going to talk about voters' rights. She's coming. She's coming in. Okay, so I'm hearing that Maria Agard is coming in to talk about voters' rights, and so we're kind of mixing it up this today. And so let me just see how I have another set coming in at 8. We have Barbados Sovereignty Party coming in at 8 o'clock. And we also have Solutions Barbados. We have Melissa Tate. She's a favorite of ours. She's coming on as well as Phillip Springer is going to be on, and Michael, and I can't remember his last name, and he's going to kill me for that, but he is also part of the Barbados Sovereignty Party, and he's going to be coming on. He's a rabbi, and Rabbi Michael, and he's going to be on as well. So we're looking forward to that. But while we wait on Dr. Agard, we have a video here talking about voters' rights. right? Voters' rights. As you're aware that there are a number of persons in Barbados, number of citizens in Barbados who've been infected with the COVID-19 virus. And if all we have to do is to do the math, I mean, it's been like about 500 people per day that have been infected with the COVID-19 virus, and you're in quarantine for 14 days. Can somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that? Where you're in quarantine, I think, for 14 days. So we just do the math on that, right? That by the time the 19th come along, we are going to probably have about how many, probably about 20,000 people or so in quarantine, or a couple, 15 to 20,000 people in quarantine. So are we saying that all of those people will not be able to vote? Well, here is my countrywoman, Michelle Russell. She is an attorney at law here in Barbados, and one who is a true advocate of the people. I love this woman. And so she's educating us about these, she's talking about why can't COVID positive people vote? Why can't they vote? So let's just watch this video.
Hi everyone. Some people have reached out to me and they have asked me to explain why it is COVID positive people cannot vote. They also wanted me to explain why it is we didn't bother to pursue legal action in respect of those who are being disenfranchised because they cannot vote. So I'm going to do my best to explain it. Now, before I continue, yes, I see the bump on my chin. I call him Fred. Now that that's out of the way, let's move on. Now, voting, the right to vote, is governed by the Representation of People's Act. And according to Section 6 of that Act, as long as you're on the voters list, so you are qualified to be put on the voters list, and you are on the voters list, then under that Act, you have the right to vote. So whether you're COVID positive or not, once your name is on the list, you're supposed to be allowed to vote. In fact, Section 6.3 of the Act says that the only way you, having been on the list of electors, is not allowed to vote is if another enactment says you have an incapacity that prevents you from voting. And this incapacity could be a legal incapacity, a mental incapacity that prevents you from casting your vote. So in other words, once you're on the list, you're supposed to be allowed to vote. That it's a protected right. And it's so protected that if you go down into Section 26 of the Representation of People's Act, it goes as far as saying, if somebody turns up to vote and it turns out they're not qualified to have been on the list of electors, but they are on the list of electors, that you are supposed to allow them to vote anyway, but you can challenge the validity of the vote and it might be subject to legal penalty. So in other words, once your name on the voters list, you're supposed to be able to vote, which means all COVID positive people whose names appear on the current voters list are by law entitled to vote. Now, the EBC has said their hands are tied, and the Prime Minister has said there's nothing she can do because it's a matter for the EBC. And both are correct. The Prime Minister's Assistant Prime Minister really cannot get involved in election matters because, as you may imagine, it's a conflict of interest. So she's correct. The EBC is saying their hands are tied because even though they're in charge of elections, there's another act that is tying their hands. So even though, which is perhaps why the government has said if you turn up with symptoms, you'll be allowed to vote. You know why? Because the Representation of People's Act said once your name on that voters list, if you turn up, you're supposed to be able to vote. They cannot stop you from voting. However, under the Emergency Management Directives, which is another piece of legislation, it says that if you are in quarantine or isolation and you leave, you are subject to a fine, and a big fine at that. So when the EBC is saying that COVID positive people can't vote, they're essentially saying you can't vote because if you come out to vote, you're breaching the Emergency Management Directive. So it's not quite that they're saying they are stopping you from voting. No, once your name is on the voters list and you turn up, they probably won't know who is in isolation and who is in quarantine, you know. They would just know who the list of electors are. So they can't police that. But if you turn up, you are breaching the law and you will be subject to legal penalty, a fine, etc. So it's being discouraged because it can create a super spreader event. But that is almost contradictory because they're essentially saying that if you have symptoms and you turn up, we're going to let you vote. So on the one hand, we're not letting people out of quarantine or isolation because we don't want to create a super spreader event. But on the other hand, if you come with symptoms, you can stand up in a long line with other people, expose them, and we will let you vote. So, you know, it's not adding up. And I believe that if a safe method had been created for people who are COVID positive or symptomatic to vote, then we less likely have this situation of possible exposure. Now, why? have we not pursued the legal action? Several people came forward wanting to do something about it. And I wasn't the one who was going to do it, but I had referred them to another attorney who was willing to do it. The problem was time. And this is what happens when you call an election with 3 weeks' notice. You limit the ability of things to be done. So yes, back in 2018, I was part of a group of people who had filed an election, a challenge of the EBC to make sure we could get on the voters list. But we had months. We filed in December, and election was until May. In this case, the people who've come forward, even if we manage in best case scenario to file on the Friday, elections are Wednesday. So we have this problem that even if best case scenario, we get before the court by Tuesday and the court made an order saying these COVID positive people should be allowed to vote, the logistics would be a nightmare. There is no way that in 24 hours before the election, the EBC would have been able to put sufficient measures in place to allow COVID positive people to vote safely. And it was for that reason that the attorney made the decision that, practically speaking, it wouldn't make sense at this late stage. However, I did say both the EBC and the Prime Minister are correct. EBC said their hands tied because of the COVID directives. Prime Minister says she can't get involved in election matters. But let's note, it's the COVID directives that stop people from leaving isolation. In Bahamas last year, when they had the elections, they allowed the COVID positive people to leave quarantine specifically to vote with very specific provisions that require them to go right back to quarantine. In the US, when we had the recent US elections, in St. Louis, they allowed drive-through voting so that the COVID positive people turned up in their cars. They were met by election officials in full PPE, and it was a safer way for them to do in-person voting. The directives expired in January, and it was this government who had the power to amend those directives to allow COVID positive people in very specific situations to leave isolation to vote. But this was not done. So yes, the government cannot get involved in elections, but they could have amended the directives that are tying the hands of the EBC, and that was not done. So I hope this gives you the explanation. I hope you understand. If you plan to vote on Wednesday, I suggest stay in a bubble. Right now, tons of people are turning up positive. We're at 4,700 in isolation, and the numbers keep rising. If you want to vote, isolate yourself. If you have flu-like symptoms, please stay home. Let us not expose people unnecessarily. And those of you who are choosing to vote, just vote wisely and be safe.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Michelle, for that. And one of the things that she said, which is, again, it's always, okay, I'm sorry. I was trying to read some of the comments here. Yes, C. Roach is saying, Mr. Roach is saying, I would take the risk the Constitution supersedes all statutes. It is the supreme law of the land, which is clearly established in the said Constitution. That's correct. Now, here's the thing that it's really, really bad that this wasn't done. Michelle talked about the fact that the directives, the COVID directives, that they expired in early January, and they were amended. The directives were amended, if you all remember. And at that time, they didn't make any amendments for this particular, to facilitate the persons, people voting. So they did not take this into consideration, and these are the kinds of things that we need to hold them accountable for. Because yes, the sitting prime minister is not cannot interfere into election matters, but the opportunity was there, when you were amending the directives, to make that amendment so that it would allow for persons who have contracted the COVID-19 to be able to vote. And now we're going to have thousands of people not voting. Every day, according to them, we have over 500 persons who are infected. And that is what, can you imagine? This is the vote that our four parents died for, and they can't. In some cases, you have children who are infected, and because they're home with their parents, those parents have to be quarantined as well, and they can't vote. you know, and you know, arrangements were made in Jamaica and as you know, in other Caribbean islands. We might say the U.S. is a big country, but there are other places that arrangements were made, you know, for their people to vote, and why not here? I want to hear your thoughts about that. It says the directives were and remain wishy-washy. Remember, the Emergency Act gives the PM absolute power. Yes. So, yeah, you know, wow. But let me. I'm hoping to have Maria AGARD, you know, speaking on this tonight. I'm saying
preparing to hold elections during the COVID-19 pandemic, managing elections in the context of COVID-19 perspective from the Commonwealth will help countries safeguard the democratic rights and freedoms of citizens without endangering their health.
so. We are listening to Maria AGARD. It's Maria AGARD, Dr. Maria AGARD, and she's speaking in St. Philip West. We're at a spot meeting with Miss Lynette Eastman. So let's go back to Miss Dr. Maria AGARD.
Accountable and inclusive electoral processes in difficult circumstances during these exceptionally challenging times. She continued, under the heading Democracy, our Commonwealth Charter recognizes the inalienable rights of individuals to participate in democratic processes.
Okay, we just have a break in the transmission.
This remains as important as ever as elections take place of representatives who will develop and scrutinize policies affecting so many areas of people's lives and livelihoods as nations and communities mobilize for recovery from the impact of pandemic and to build back better. She speaks to the issue, my friends, of creating those alternative opportunities for COVID positive individuals to vote. Now, somebody will have to tell me whether Barbados is still a member of the Commonwealth. But I know that all the surrounding countries, Trinidad, Jamaica, St. Lucia, I'm sorry, not St. Lucia, Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, St. Vincent, Antigua and Barbuda, they all participated in the survey that led to the development of this paper. And Barbados, as a member state of the Commonwealth, would have knowledge of this paper. I had knowledge of this paper. And if it is that I had knowledge of this paper, I am certain that the BBC had knowledge of this paper. And I am certain that whatever legislative adjustments needed to be made to facilitate COVID positive individuals, they could have been made in time for COVID positive patients to vote. How can you be up and down Barbados boasting that you put out a manifesto and you were so ready for your election, but you have not gone to Parliament to lay the necessary legislation to include everybody? Who it is that really wasn't ready for the election? You call an election and you ain't ready. You are not ready. But what is so egregious about this? Because I know that my friends will say, but Maria, if they say, they can't come out. But are you aware that it is not only those who are COVID positive who are prohibited from participating in the election, but every single person over the age of 18 who lives in that house, whether they are COVID positive or not. So what we really have is a situation where healthy, ambulatory, COVID negative patients, or rather COVID negative electors, cannot vote. I'm going to say that again. We have in this country an emergent situation where healthy electors COVID negative electors cannot vote by association of sharing a house with a COVID positive person. And no provision has been made by this government to facilitate these people, even though they are eligible electors. How, my friends, can we be comfortable with this stain on our democracy? Understand that tonight there are near 6,000 people already in isolation and quarantine. And if we multiply that by at least 2 or 3, we have near 18,000 people who have been disenfranchised. But I will go further because I feel that you must hear the truth, the unadulterated truth. My friends, let me tell you, you see political parties invest heavily in pollsters to tell them what they need to know. And I have no doubt that pollsters have been contracted to break down the impact of COVID on Barbados electors. Those pollsters can say how prohibition will affect the outcome of the election. They will not be able to say to a man how people vote, but they can state the probability of how this particular directive is going to affect the outcome of the election. And I say without apology that if it was known that it was the Barbados Labour Party who was disproportionately affected by the directive, we would not have it. They would have found the solution. The fact that they have not found the solution, in spite of them knowing when they were going to call the election, in spite of this document available to everybody, the fact that they have refused, stoically refused to find a solution, tells me that they know that they will not be disproportionately affected. So do you know what I call that? I call that willful voter suppression. And it is a disgrace, and it is a shame that we can be so silent in the face of willful voter suppression. I will not be silent because my conscience is bothering me. I know wrong when I see wrong. I am not afraid to speak out. And I am calling on all of you who in your hearts know that it is wrong too. Can you imagine 15,000 people, 20,000 people, 25,000 people unable to vote? If by election day 25,000 people are not able to vote, that is 10% of the electorate. How can we have free and fair elections with 10% of the electorate prohibited from voting? So I am calling on all fair-minded people, those of you who have sat and said it wrong, but I can't be right. Even those of you who have found excuses, I'm calling on you to go to your bed and go to your private quarters. Go to the areas where you reflect on matters. Recognize wrong when you see wrong. Recognize wrong when you see wrong and do something about it. I am getting a cue that I need to wrap up. So I will wrap up here because I will not be disrespectful to the other speakers. But I'm here tonight really and truly to endorse Lynette Eastman, a good friend, a good citizen of this country, a woman who has worked diligently in the country, held the ministry flawlessly, raised money for Barbados, increased our coffers, $300 million annually from taxes, international business. That was Lynette Eastman's contribution to this country. A qualified lawyer with her own business. Citizen of Barbados and an exceptional woman. I commend her to you tonight, and I ask you humbly to take her into your confidence. She has been with you for over 20 years. Give her a chance. I'm begging you, place your X on January 19th next to the name Lynette Eastman, and let us bring a great woman to the House of Assembly. I thank you for your attendance.
You don't need me to speak yet.
That was Dr. Maria AGARD, former MP, and she's talking about the voter suppression that we were talking about, discussing earlier. Any thoughts, anybody, on what she's saying? Because she really believes that it is going to benefit only one party, and that's why it was allowed. Because, as the lawyer said, there was the opportunity. You know what, that they could have, in terms of the directives were amended in January, but it was not, that part of it wasn't amended, you know, and at that time we knew that there was an election. By then we knew that there was an election. So why wasn't it amended to allow this? It's going to be, by the time we get to the 19th, I'm telling you, it's going to be about between 15 to 20,000 Barbadians, almost 10%. If it gets to 20, 25, 10% of the country that's not able to vote. And it's something that could have been corrected earlier, early in January, when we amended these COVID directives. I want to hear from you guys, and Barbados, why I would have loved to see more people speaking about this. This is voter suppression, is what this really is. This is voter suppression, and we're not hearing too many persons speaking about that. I know I'm waiting on Mr. Phillip Springer, and he is very, very passionate about it. I've also heard Reverend Atherley, speaking about it. I've heard a lot of the party leaders. They're speaking up against it, about it. And I know Mr. Phillip Springer is very passionate, and there's something he's working on, and I'm waiting for him to come on. I'm seeing Melissa, but she said she's having some challenges with her internet. So we're gonna wait until they get it sorted out. I think she's still having problems with their internet. Okay, so let's just while we wait on them, let's talk. Okay, this is Philip, and he's trying to reach me at this time. So let's talk about the nurses. How many of you guys are going on the road with the nurses? How many? Okay, while you're doing that, Mr. Roach is saying Dr. Agard's speech is clean and clear in its entirety. I can't find the words to describe that contribution. It was concise and factual. Super job. I thought so as well. I thought so as well. And she was there to endorse Lynette Eastman, who is the candidate for St. Philip West.
This nurse came into the meeting and she said for months she was not paid. She's working on a ward. She said when a person dies on the ward, she will not report the death to the kitchen, so the kitchen will still send that patient's food, so she will get something to eat because she wasn't paid.
He will have to stop because no one sent him out there, and the things that he's complaining about have not happened.
Things that he is complaining about have not happened.
I remember, having to go to work to pay my bills and perhaps not having money to get there or anything to eat. Many of my nurses here can attest to that. So tell me, in your good conscience, how could you?
Things that he is complaining about have not happened.
In your good conscience, how could you?
Neither of them have any.
That was an ad from APP, and we're using that to encourage everybody to go out. How many of you are going to go out to support the nurses? Who are the people going out to support the nurses? Who is going out to support the nurses? I'm not seeing anybody. Who is going out to support the nurses? It's tomorrow, guys. It's tomorrow, Monday. It's tomorrow, Monday at 10 o'clock. Tomorrow, Monday at 10. Tomorrow, Monday at 10. Yeah, Lisa Niles is going. Lisa Niles is going. All right. Yes, Lisa. Yes, I'll be there tomorrow. I'll be there tomorrow. I'll be there tomorrow. Is there any special color that we're to wear? I don't know. Okay. Come on, guys. We need more people out there. All right. So let me see. I think I see Mr. Michael Thompson is on. Rabbi Michael Thompson is on. I'm still seeing Melissa. And Melissa, tonight we wanted to get an update from you on your campaign and any thoughts that you have on what is happening. Give us, how are things going? So I'm going to hope that I can still hear from you. Okay, so let me just say hi to Rabbi Michael Thompson. How are you doing?
Hi, Marcia. I'm doing great. Hi, Barbados. How is everybody doing? Hi, Melissa.
We're doing great. Melissa, can you hear me? I know you. Yes, you can hear. Okay, because we were having some technical issues before. Yes, and so it's great to have you guys. This is a Barbados Sovereignty Party, and I'm really hoping that your president can get on, Mr. Phillip Springer. And we have Melissa Tate and Melissa. I know you've been out using that voice, and so you're trying to get that voice in a good. So, Melissa, listen, man, you turned celebrity. I saw you in Barbados today. Melissa, tell me about that.
Well, I did my spot meeting in Newberry on Thursday the 13th. Mm-hmm. And I could say it went well. There wasn't really a large crowd, but I believe people were in their homes listening. There were persons by a shop adjacent to the location, and they were listening because afterwards a guy engaged me in a conversation. And the feeling that I am having during this election time is like a feeling of confusion among those in the electorate and fear.
Mm-hmm.
I don't